Three, two, one, and Ron, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on the latest episode of the Door Unhinged podcast.
All right.
I did. Here's the thing: your combo video, I really liked it, but sometimes the game will literally stop you and say, "By the way, this stance is best for this enemy. Don't do that," and it'll force you to change. Has that happened to you?
Right. Yeah, that happened. Actually, once I already unlocked all the stances, it would like go back and say, "Hey, use the sword stance against swords people," even though like I was like 15, 20 hours into the game, which was kind of odd. Even though I had all the stances, it was telling me how to do um, the original when you first unlock. Actually, you
Yeah.
don't even unlock; you just start with that one. But yeah, because in that video, I was purposely going out of my way to stick to the stances I was showing off at the time. So I was using the quote unquote incorrect stance against, that enemy type. And that it seems
Right.
like if you're not using the stances correctly, it'll do that, try to do that at least once. I've never seen it happen more than once, though. Which I think if that happens just once, that's fine. But
I've seen it
any more
happen
than that,
six
yeah, it
times.
is annoying.
Yeah, and your video got me more excited about the combat because I think it's more interesting to actually have mechanical reasons to the stances other than just numbers. Like, oh, this is good for the spear guy. Oh, this is good for the big guy. It's a pretty fun game. I think the enemy diversity could be a tiny bit better, but I've been having a lot of
Sure.
fun.
Yeah, with their adherence to pretty much having like four unit classes. There are obviously some of them have slightly different weapons, but a spear guy's gonna have a spear, a sword guy's gonna have a sword. So they kind of limited themselves there, but they at least kind of look different, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
Like different armors, different size guys.
yeah.
But yeah, I could see where you're coming from on that, for sure.
Um, I just got to the second continent, and there's some of the
Hmm.
well, I guess I won't spoil the faction, but there's another faction that you're fighting towards the second chunk of the island, and they definitely can take a lot more punishment than just the Mongols, and they'll like get four hits on you before you even know what's going on. So I was like, oh,
Right, right.
oh, damn, there goes my fear of being overpowered.
Yeah, I'm just right around that point because some reason I got it in my head to like 100% the first area before going on to the next. Which I probably shouldn't have done because I think it made the combat a little easier than it should be at that time, since
Hmm.
I had like almost 75% of the unlocks already unlocked at that point. So I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. I would maybe come back and 100% the areas after you've kind of worked your way through the story a decent amount.
Right, and I can't imagine how hard that is to balance. Like, I think an example of what you're saying, where you can accidentally overpower yourself, a place where that's really bad is in the Borderlands games, where you'll have a bunch of side quests, and when you go to do them, the main quest more or less rolls over for you, or vice versa. There's no way you
Right.
could experience all of the combat in the preferred way.
Right. Yeah, that's tricky without doing like a Skyrim style thing where it kind of evens out the level of everybody no matter where you're at, which I'm actually not a huge fan of. Or actually, does Skyrim do that or does Skyrim do the opposite of that? But games where they even out the levels, so like a wolf, the same wolf is going to be level 4 or level 48 from the beginning to the start of the game, which doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, and then it's like it's like okay, now it's balanced, but also what's the point of leveling up anymore?
Yeah, that completely diminishes the like RPG stat element of the game, in my opinion, and I'm not a huge fan of that. But yeah,
There's a game with RPG elements that you covered Children of Morta recently, and there was a part towards the end of the review that I really liked, and I try to keep my compliments to a minimum on the podcast because then when I play it back to edit it, it just sounds like I'm being a giant kiss ass or something. But I really I
sure.
really like how in your review you tried to describe how it felt to play because no
Right.
matter no matter how much reviews you watch in a game, sometimes when you sit down to play it, you realize, oh, well, that feels stupid. And now, even though all those reviewers said it was good, there's this subtlety here that I found and I don't like it. But you described how it felt to turn around and smack things in that game, which honestly, I think that should just be a normal part of the review process, just doing that. Is that something you've
Right.
done in other videos besides the Children's Immortal one?
Yeah, that was something I was trying at the time, and actually I've shied away from it, but I was considering bringing back that section because I didn't have a whole lot of people respond positively about that, or not really. There was zero negativity about it, but fewer people mentioned it than I would have thought.
Hmm.
But yeah, at the time, I had it in that review. I had it in what's that game? Not Ashen. Souls like with guns. I'm drawing a blank on it. But anyways, I did it in
Oh,
maybe 3 reviews.
uh, it's crap.
Remnant,
Oh,
Remnant
Rem.
from the Ashes.
Yeah,
I had the ashes part right, but yeah, that was something I was trying at the time. But I might bring it back because I just did a review on Carry On, and someone mentioned like, "Hey, you didn't even talk about the controls. I don't know how it controls." Like, and that's a pretty
yeah.
hard game to describe how it controls because the blob thing just moves exactly where you're moving the stick. Like,
Yeah.
since it's almost like zero gravity, it's just like moving a cursor around. So it didn't even really occur to me to even cover the controls. It's just like, oh, it just moves
Yeah.
where you're telling it to move. There's no jump, there's
Yeah.
but yeah, I could have maybe spent at least like 30 seconds maybe describing how it felt to play, and that's something I might actually bring back in my reviews.
I think it gives you a cut above because I'm at a point in my life where I've been playing video games for more than 2 decades now, and it's like
Hmm.
all these reviews are just starting to sound the same. From like if you just look across the media, all the at the end of the day, it's always like, and this is no exception, or and this is that, and this is that, and they're like, oh, this feels satisfying. I'm like, okay, it feels satisfying. So I
Right.
buy the game, I sit down with it, I have the controller in my hands. What do you mean by satisfying? So yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
having that control section would be good.
Yeah, that's always a frustrating thing for being someone who's making a video, is because all we want to do is just hand you the controller of this early game and be like, try this, but we can't. No matter what we do, all we have is our words and this, pixelated version of the game that we can show you on whatever platform we're using. But yeah, that's kind of a challenge because like I said, all we want to do is just hand you the controller and be like, hey, try it. Actually, after this, I forgot. I also did it in my review for Control, and I think I'm pretty proud of how that one turned out. Specifically, the control section at the end, control section of Control, that shooter from Remedy.
Yeah, no, I've seen the cover art and I've heard pretty good
Hmm.
things so far too. And
Yeah, I think that's the only 3 reviews I've done that in. Just a dedicated, this is how it feels kind of thing. But yeah, I might actually bring that back. That's weird. I was just thinking about that. Just it was either last night or this morning when I just put out that Carry On review.
it's
So yeah.
you ever see a game or a movie that just its name is setting itself up to be attacked by critics? Like I think there's a movie that came out recently called You Should Have Left, and I'm like, man, if that movie's bad, you've just already made each critic's like headline.
Oh,
So if Control
right.
has bad controls, then
Yeah, I could see that, sure. But I mean, of course, everybody who's making those think they have something brilliant on their hands, so it's hard to, see the bad reviews coming in.
I saw there was one game I saw on your channel, and I was like, how the hell have I not heard of this? And then I saw that it's not out yet. It was some sort of Souls like where you could like harden your skin.
Oh yeah, Mortal Shell.
Yeah, that looked awesome. I was like, I saw it and I was
Yeah,
like, damn, what is this? That's
yeah, it really surprised me actually when I got to try it.
yeah. There's a part where the guy does a half sword. Nobody does half swording in games besides like For Honor. It's when you like flip the blade upside down and hit with the hilt, which apparently is something knights actually did for some reason. I was like, oh,
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool.
Turn it into more of like a blunt hit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Honestly,
That game's definitely cool. I That was the first time I got hands on with that, and I figured out all that stuff in the combat system in maybe just about 3 total hours of playing it, and that just goes to show like how intuitive the game is to control. It's not like convoluted really.
mhm.
But yeah, I'm definitely excited for that when it comes out.
It's one of those games where when you pick it up, you're like, oh crap, there's layers to this. Like when I just sat down with Nioh 2 for a little bit, and I was like, oh
Right.
man, in the hands of a master, this is you know, if I dedicated a whole month to only playing Eastern themed games, I could have a hell of a time. I could play Ghost of Tsushima or Sekiro or Nioh 2. I still need to beat Nioh 2. I'm having a ton of fun with it.
Right. Yeah, I stopped at about the 75% point on Neo 2. I liked but didn't love that one.
Did you
But
beat
yeah,
the main
it
story?
it is weird how that's the new big theme. That's the new zombies is you know Asian themed or Japanese themed.
Yeah. I think there's yeah, I think some people were mad about Tsushima, but to me, it just the game didn't have any like malice in it. To me, it just seemed like an appreciation kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah, for a AAA game, it seems like it's trying to be a little more refined or like artsy, I guess. I mean, you pretty much you make haikus in the game. I mean, come on, it's not necessarily for 13-year-olds too much. Although you still have you're killing people with swords, so that'll still appeal to them, I guess.
Tsushima puts that Xbox the new Xbox's graphics to shame. Like I saw Halo Infinite and I saw all those other ones, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, none of these look as good as the sun shimmering grass in Tsushima.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing as soon as Halo Infinite came on. It's like I'm not sure if that project may have started on Xbox One. I'm thinking after what we saw, where it
Yeah,
looked good, but it didn't look necessarily next gen at all.
yeah,
Um, Most of the games in that presentation were kind of like that, but all those games almost I would play. Like almost all of them, I was like, oh, I'd play that game. I'd play that, but none of them really was like blew my mind.
yeah. The instant I saw the Rare logo and I saw a bunch of grass, and I was like, if I don't hear "guh" in like 30 seconds, I'm just gonna be really annoyed. And I'm like, ah, damn.
Uh,
But
I almost forgot that's a property at this point.
yeah, I mean, he's in Smash, and that's great. But that's only because Nintendo handles that so well, and they're like, hey, if you just say yes,
Hmm.
we'll do the animations, we'll make it look beautiful, we'll do the homage perfectly. Okay, all right, cool.
Right. That gives them a pass for another decade at least.
Yeah, no, it's like, hey, this character exists, so yeah, that's a thing. But yeah,
Right. Kind of
was that Fable thing at the
kind
end?
of
Is that a
with
remake? Oh, I'm sorry, you go.
yeah, Fable. No, I think that's a soft reboot.
Oh,
Probably.
okay.
I think it has to be a soft reboot. I mean, they didn't really show anything, but Fable 3 really kind of ended, or that game kind of landed with a thud. So I think they do have to do a reboot at this point.
Yeah. You were saying, I think you were saying something before I was trying to bring up Fable.
I forget now. No problem.
Oh, now I feel bad.
No, no, it was nothing
um,
important.
yeah, I never played Fable 3. I just heard it had like really black and white morality decisions where it was like, oh, you can kill your childhood love interest or these 15 people, and I'm like,
It's not a terrible game, but it does have what I would consider to be the worst final boss fight of any game because
what
it's
do
you
you do?
press one button, you press a button, you hit the shoot button. I'm not even jokingly not like, oh, it's easy. No, you hit one button, game's end, game's over.
I think one of the funnest things I did with like my friends was we all tried to come up with the most generic final boss possible. So one of them just said it looks like a giant disco ball that like talks in an ancient forgotten language because for some reason in Shimigami Tensei and just a lot of games the final boss is a really simple geometric shape for some reason.
Hmm. I've never gotten to the final boss of anything but Persona 5. Yeah,
Uh,
I've played Shin Megami Tensei 4. I did not finish it though, so I never. Actually, I think in Persona 5 isn't it something kind of like a big orby heart container thing or something?
yeah, I still need to beat it. They're always like simple. They're either simple shapes or they're like these really elaborate Final Fantasy looking boss things with four wings and four arms. I just hate when there's a final boss that hijacks what you're actually aiming for, and it's like the main antagonist gets killed by this new final boss, and then it's like you have this final battle that has nothing to do with the story up to that point, and you just gotta sit
Yeah,
there
kind of
with.
like Bioshock 1.
Oh yeah, the
Have you
big.
finished that?
I heard that it
Yeah.
was like a big golden man or something.
Yeah, it was some. Yeah, it's just some big chunky dude. I don't know. I don't even remember his name.
That's how you
It's
can
like,
tell it's a
okay,
good
who's
man.
this guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and do you have any other videos coming up that you're particularly excited about showing, or that you?
I've kind of had a insanely busy like last whole month where I have to stop and think like, what month even is it actually? But I kind of have a slight break right now, even though I still have two projects in the works. But
I still think it's
that's a
March.
light load for me. I have one video that's kind of what is it? It's like eight games that I could think deserve more widespread acclaim kind of like a hidden gem kind of a thing, but
Ooh.
from games from the last couple of years, kind of games that were my favorites that I think should be remembered a little better than they are.
Mhm.
So that's one that is in the works, and then also I'm working on a video for Other Side, which is a strategy tactics roguelite game,
Ah, cool.
and that's all I have in the works right now.
Are you willing to share a game from your list of underappreciated games?
It's actually one I accidentally referenced, Ashen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I looked through the reviews of that game, and the biggest complaint everyone has, I think, is that it just doesn't have any players, or that the devs abandoned it, or something to that effect,
For
right?
the Yeah, the multiplayer component is optional, so you can play with a AI companion because there are certain sections of the game where you require them to get up to certain ledges and stuff. But you don't have to play it with people, so I don't see that being a huge detractor.
Hmm.
Like if you still wanted to pick it up now, it's 110% awesome a single player game as well.
It's also 110% off a lot of the time. I'll probably wait till it's like $2 and then snag it because the combat looks really fun.
Yeah, the combat's pretty good. I think the world and exploration is a cut above the rest, like in the Souls like field, definitely.
I might be able to guess another game on your list.
Okay, go ahead.
Titanfall 2.
Nope.
Damn, because that
I
was
think that's I think that's got that has appropriate acclaim at this point.
the thing is it's I'm not sure if it does because it's really good. You go online, you see 35 people. It's it got a Steam re-release,
Yeah,
which was nice, so it got a tiny bit of that second wind, but not what it deserves.
right. Yeah, I really liked playing the multiplayer when that came out, and then I think I finished the single player like a year after that. I came back to it, but yeah, I was bummed out that more people. That was when it came out to die with what was it, Battlefield 4, and I was more enjoying the Titanfall 2 multiplayer, and they had the live player count like when you're in the game, and just
Hmm.
like watching that slowly dwindle as like just a couple days after launch. I was like, oh come on, like this is actually a shooter I'm enjoying, and nobody's playing it. It kind of bums you out, even though you can get a
Yeah,
match. It's just seeing like such a low player count kind of lowers your incentive to go play a game.
yeah.
I don't know how many games on Steam I go look and like, oh, this is a cool looking shooter thing. Like recently, Rocket Arena, um, that came out, and you go and look how many players are playing it. It's like 428. It's like, oh, no, never mind.
If you want to play those more obscure game modes, then forget it because there's going to be 30 people online. They're going to be playing the main mode, and that's it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of sad right now that games like that are kind of hero shooter based, even though they're made with a decent quality, they're kind of just coming out and dying unless you're like the giant big ones. Like
Right.
pretty much if you have like weird characters that are kind of cell shaded look or exaggerated, they're like all failing right now, which is odd.
Yeah, you got to
What was
be
that other one where it was like a pseudo fighting game with like this lady that was on a giant ball? Came out this year. Bleeding Edge? Yeah, Bleeding Edge.
I'd probably recognize it if I saw it.
Yeah.
The thing is like, yeah, no, you got to be Riot Games, you got to be Blizzard, because I mean, look at Overwatch's art style. That's been done before. They just do it really well. Look at Valorant's art style. That's been done before. It's just done really well. It's a
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest sins, to tie it back to what we were talking about earlier, is Titanfall 2, is that Titanfall 3 was in development and they kind of just gutted those resources and put them into Apex Legends, which is a good game, but I would
Hmm.
much rather those resources been put towards a proper Titanfall sequel than another battle royale, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like that downfall for some reason started with Lawbreakers, which was a great game, but
Oh
ever
yeah.
since then, if you're a if you're a edgy character based, if you have weird character, if you have a robot character and a lady with like a demon face, you're probably going to come out and fail on the launch day. Even though it's sad because, like I said, a lot of those are quality, but
Yeah.
yeah, they're just launching to die.
And Call of Duty tried too hard to be that, which I think was Modern Warfare was a step in the right direction, where it's like, oh, Black Ops 4, now you have these classes and there's a robot and I don't
Right.
know. which you kind of kick yourself over because people beat it up about being the same exact game every single year. But the instant they try and be different, people give them backlash about that too.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of something I've been noticing for like maybe 5 to 10 years now. Like when I was growing up in the like early 2000s, mostly, uh, more weird multiplayer games were more successful in a way where they would find their own audience. Where nowadays everyone's funneled to their one game, and those medium tier games that are so good are just not getting the player base whatsoever. So they're launching and almost dead on day one,
Yeah, it's a
which is
more
pretty sad.
game.
But back
It's
then, things were more evenly spread out amongst all games. Obviously, you still had your Counter Strikes and big player counts, but those other smaller titles still had a decent population. But that's not the case now.
yeah. When I think of the old game, when I think of like the old days, and by that I mean me in high school, I think of Xbox Live and my Xbox breaking all of the time, and I look back on it as like, yeah, no, some of those multiplayer games had more niche followings, and it was fun to be able to just log in and play with people. But I also look back on it as a somewhat abusive relationship because as a child slash teen, I got used to the Red Ring of Death. I got used to controllers just failing all the time. And then when I started getting into like Nintendo hardware and stuff, and I was like, oh, shit doesn't have to break when you buy it. That's awesome. And then
Right.
luckily I have friends who were smart enough to help me build a gaming PC, and it's unless there's an exclusive, that's what I'm gonna go with every single time.
Right. Yeah, I've always been kind of an everything player. I've always balanced PC with consoles pretty 50-50. Obviously, if it's a game that's on both, I'll usually play it on PC instead. But yeah, I'm pretty much wherever the good games are. I don't have allegiances really to hardware.
Yeah, I don't have allegiances to hardware, but to the PS4's credit, fucking, I'm killing myself because I guess it's worse for the algorithm when you curse, so I got to go back and get this stuff out. But to the
Oh,
PS
yeah.
to the PS4's credit, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, God of War, Last of Us. I mean, some people didn't like Last of Us 2, but there's Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us 2, Spider-Man. I find myself hooking it up all the time, even though I prioritize the Switch and for mobile and the PC for everything else.
Right. Yeah.
Surprising amount of mileage out of that one. Is a backlog? This is something that this is probably one of the videos I have down in the pipeline that I hope to put out there. But back when I was out of my day job for a while, and the pandemic was in full effect, it was like I had this creeping realization. I guess it's a first world problem that no matter how much free time I have, I'm never going to get through my backlog. There's still going to be $60 uh, like sunk fallacies where way back when I bought a $60 game, a AAA game, didn't even open it or didn't play it enough to get my money's worth. Because I'm just gonna be playing what's new. I almost never go back and just randomly play a thing.
Sure.
Do you think that's something that bothers you, or do you think you just kind of go with the flow?
That's something that bothered me uh, maybe like 5 to 10 years ago. I think I'm kind of a firm believer that a lot of people, this could be a wild speculation, but a lot of gamers around their late 20s, early 30s all go through a kind of a big nostalgic phase. And that's why you saw a lot of retro gaming YouTubers pop up, about 5 years ago. And
Hmm.
some of those are starting to wane, but not all of them. But anyways, I think everybody kind of goes through that, and it's more of just a phase. You're not always gonna be like super down for NES games, 20 years after that big nostalgic phase hits you. And that's when I was collecting like old Zelda games. I had a little Zelda collection,
Hmm.
and I kind of went through that phase. And all of a sudden, a couple of years later, I'm like, I don't need all this junk land. Like, I don't play these games. Like, I just completely lost all of that feeling of nostalgia and like going, like having a backlog and like, oh, I didn't play this game. I didn't play this game.
Hmm.
And now I'm like 100% just like new game, new game, new game. I think I've played enough. I've played probably close to 10,000 games in my life. Not beaten,
Wow.
but played. Um, And I think from here on out, I'm good. I think I've played all the old games I feel like I want to play, and from here on out, I'm good playing just new releases.
Hmm.
But yeah, that is something I noticed. Mid to late 20s, early 30s, a lot of people all go through that kind of big retro, rekindle my childhood nostalgic phase. But it is just a phase, and I do myself and a few of my friends, we all went through it, but then you kind of come out of it. So maybe don't clutter up your house too much with too much Atari and Sega Genesis games. You
Yeah,
know,
it's funny how we're in
it
a
may pass.
it's funny how we're in a phase where Xbox 360 is retro now, right? I'm nostalgic about Super Meat Boy.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
nostalgic about Castle Crashers. I'm nostalgic about hand drawn video games because I remember that being a huge thing. Xbox Live Arcade, Castle Crashers. Well, this isn't 3D. This is a hand drawn thing. This is a flash game. This was just a normal person with, a drawing tablet, and they made their game a reality, and they did a horizontal movement from Newgrounds to the Xbox, and that I have nostalgia for that. Like that is in the same category in my brain as like SNES and stuff like that, which is really weird.
right. Yeah, I did a video last year where I, for some reason, I had to reference Super Meat Boy, and I think I had to include a clip because I had that feeling of like, is Super Meat Boy relevant enough to just name drop it still, or it's like, oh man, Xbox 360 is like old now. What? So I think I did actually put it like a 4 second clip of, hey, this is Super Meat Boy for some of you younger people out there.
Demonetized.
Yeah,
How is that going for you, dude? Because and making any video on YouTube, it's like navigating a minefield. You have a constantly shifting algorithm. People whose livelihoods, like I know Review Tech USA, it's his full time job. He doesn't have. I don't think he has a day job outside of it. He doesn't have that fallback. So
right.
if the algorithm randomly decides to like shiv him, then that's a whole thing. Do you think there's like some sort of really weird, complicated math going on? Does it get frustrating when you upload a video and you feel like it's just been some system you don't even know that's going on is playing favorites?
Um, yeah, that's just kind of yeah, that's part of it. I've been doing YouTube since 2006, and it's always just been a hobby for me. And it's something I naturally enjoy doing. It's like it's a companion piece for me to gaming, where I was doing it before monetization, and I just continued doing it without trying to become a quote unquote YouTuber. It's just an artistic outlet for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when it changed to monetization, that was just like a bonus for me.
Right.
So um, I have a slightly different opinion on that since I do just naturally enjoy it and saw it as a hobby, and then it's a hobby I'm starting to make money on. But also, I don't really have problems with demonetization. I probably haven't had a video get demonetized in probably 2 years, which was probably just from a song I used. But I started to learn how to use more of the YouTube's free audio library for background music or like the games. Just don't use any licensed tracks, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But
Video
since
game music's helpful
I
for
try
that.
not to. What's that?
Video game music is helpful for background stuff because I hear like especially older ones don't get pulled as often.
Right. Sure.
But go on.
What was I talking about?
You
Oh
said
yeah, demonetization. Um, I try to I try to keep my channel fairly clean from like I don't curse in my videos. I save that stuff for real life, but I try not to bring it to my channel. So I don't really have big issues with demonetization for language or anything. So I've been lucky in that regard. So demonetization, like I said, isn't really a big issue for my channel. And as of a year and a half ago, this is my full time job.
wow.
Um, so yeah, I've just been doing this. I lost my job in early 2018.
Oh, I'm sorry
Well,
to hear that.
yeah, I didn't consider even though I've been doing this, I guess since January of 2018, quote unquote full time. I was still looking for work, and not until about like a year after that did I decide, you know what, I'm just gonna put even more focus on this and try this and see if I can make this work.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I've been doing decent enough to get by on the income,
Yeah,
but
you
still
gotta.
have definitely room to grow.
It's just I guess it's just unfortunate that YouTube doesn't like provide more on its end because you have the other boons like Patreon and sponsors, but those are kind of a necessity nowadays unless you're like one of the really big dudes.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
you said it yourself. Your channel's kind of like on the cleaner side. I honestly don't think we have enough channels like that because I will watch a channel and I will like it, but then
Hmm.
they'll put up a video just and all it is it's a hit piece on another YouTuber. They're just like just getting so visceral and into the drama part of it. So I kind of have like a respect for people who are just able to elevate above that and just kind of look forward and just do the game part of it without getting distracted.
Right. Yeah. Like my statement on my channel, my description or whatever, it starts out with a safe haven for gamers. And I've had a few people like kind of almost make fun of me or tease me like, oh, I need this like this little safe place for babies, but that's not what I mean. I mean, this is a place where I'm not going to clickbait you. I'm not going to try to waste your time or be fanatical or just hate a thing because it's popular. I mean, safe haven as in this is a down to earth channel where I respect you and hopefully you respect me for what I do.
Yeah.
Because like I said, this is my natural passion. This is not my desperate attempts at being a YouTuber. This is my artistic outlet is making videos and I just enjoy doing it.
That's good because if I had control over what I felt like doing, I would feel like making videos more. But then Tsushima calls to me, and it's like, you know what, that video has to wait because there's Mongolians running around, and I can't have that. I got to stop them. I don't have time to make. I don't have time to make videos right now. The Mongolians are out there. I think that's
Right. That yeah, that is a challenge is actually playing the games because I grinded out pretty hard in Tsushima for that video I made and you know the day and a half of making a script, editing, recording. By the time I'm done with that and it's uploaded, and then I'm going back into the game, I feel like I'm almost behind now. Like I'm behind the curve after that fact because I wasn't playing in that time it took me to make the video.
yeah. It's
So it's like, yeah, like
yeah.
hurry up. I try to get ahead of the curve, make a video, and then okay, I'm behind the curve. The internet has 100% figured this game out at this point, and now I'm just going to play for fun, which is where I'm at now,
Yeah.
which is playing
How is that?
it for fun.
How is that playing for fun versus playing for a profession? It must be because you're like I might not feel like going to this hot spring right now, but I need that footage or like because I don't even have a capture card. So how is that? Do you feel like you still get
Right?
your work out
Yeah,
of it?
yeah. It's I still obviously enjoy playing the games when I'm filming for them, but you do subtly play differently. Like for example, say you're in a combat encounter and you just did like maybe two things that looked like abnormally cinematic. You might go try to leap off a ledge in midair, snipe someone that you probably wouldn't have tried to go do playing naturally, but you kind of get into that zone. It's like, oh, I'm making an awesome clip right now. I might go try something outside of my normal play style, you know, to make
Yeah.
it even more cinematic or cooler, or, you know, show off demonstrate a point you're trying to do.
Yeah, you kind of just crack your knuckles and kick your feet up. You're like, yeah, I always play like this.
Right, right. It's like, yeah, all right, filming for my montage right now. You kind of go into, you know, because when I was growing up, you know, montages of games were cool to do. That's not really a thing now, which is weird. You know, like a Counter Strike montage, an Unreal Tournament montage, and you know, cool clips with you know a licensed track over it. That's all it was,
Yeah,
and those pretty much like outright died, which is strange.
yeah,
Strange a video concept can just die. You know, the classic montage.
yeah. And I think they gave way to more obnoxious montages with 8-bit glasses and giant pot leaves and joints and really loud
Yeah,
Snoop Dogg music.
right.
I'm not sure if anyone even makes those unironically anymore. At least I hope that they don't. I forgot you were talking about. Uh, I think you were talking about like how you don't touch on serious stuff. I remember earlier you had that JPEG text thing on Twitter where it was just a blue image and you just put random text on it. And you're like, this is.
Oh yeah, yeah. I try not to be like I try to just be goofy if I touch on any like concepts, and that was just an awkward week where my Twitter feed was just filled with all these like gigantic companies, and they all just came to the conclusion that like, hey, we can make everything just right and wipe our hands if we just make this statement with text. You know, we're
Right.
good.
Yeah.
We put this out. We're good. I found
Yeah.
that a funny concept.
Yeah. That's a mixed bag to me because it's like people. I felt like people swooned over that too easy, and I'm like, well, here's the thing: is that they might just be. I mean, it's in their interest to say that. Like it's a corporate interest also. Like I'm sure some of them are
Right.
genuine, and that's great. but it's
Yeah, when it's a big company though, it's that was written by so many. There were so many fingers in the pies of that paragraph. Or does that mean anything anymore?
yeah, they all
That was
start to
not an
sound the same.
individual. Yeah, just yeah. No hate against that. I just find it to be a funny concept.
I,
If there's any weirdness in the world or you do anything wrong, just make a nice little JPEG with some text and you're good.
yeah, no, that's the solution to a lot of problems. It's like it's why does it have to sound so soulless though? It's like we at blank company represent this, and this, and we are
Right,
militantly against this, and this. I'm like, you just make an energy drink. Calm down now. Uh,
right.
I've had I've had friends who have a decent amount more subscribers, and they were getting a lot of messages that said, "Why haven't you put out a JPEG with text?" And I'm like, are we assuming that people don't think this unless they put that out? Because
Right. Like
that's
maybe do something that's like actually something like say you're a company that has products or a video game company instead of a JPEG with text trying to solve everything. Maybe be like, hey, this is celebration week where we're going to have a huge shop sale in our shop. 30% off everything. We're celebrating this concept or topic or whatever is going on in the world. We're actually saving you money on our things or rewarding you in a way,
yeah.
you know, actually a thing, or maybe, give you money to charity or, anything other than just a statement that is, a non thing in the scope of the world.
Yeah, Chucklefish Games, the guys who made Stardew Valley, I believe, they put out a great response. They said that any developers who feel like they were, you know, abused in the same way that this thing happened, you can come forward and we'll provide this, and this. And I'm like, this is more than a JPEG with text. This comes
Hmm.
off as a
Yeah.
genuine response and concern for this issue.
Right. Yeah, that's a good approach. Yeah, like I said, it's more just like that's a funny thing to notice. It's not actually there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just world is kind of silly sometimes.
We are in the dark. We are truly in the darkest timeline. I'm thankful that we still have time to do video game stuff every now and again, but it's so
Right.
even if you took out the sickness, you would have stuff. If you took out that, you would have stuff. It's just layers that keep going and going. I remember when we still thought 2016 was bad. 2016 seems like a like I don't know. Uh,
A
we
high point in our history, the glory days. Yeah.
you just
Yeah,
don't
it
know.
doesn't get much. Well, I wouldn't say it doesn't get much worse than this. It very much does, but it is a low point in most of our uh, younger people lives.
I hear they're just I hear they're starting to roll out like the tests and stuff, like the vaccines and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, you go first. You try it first. I'm not. Uh,
Right.
no, I will observe you from this corner over here, and we'll see how it develops. And if it's good, I'll take some also.
Right. Yeah, me and my wife have been pretty good at just hunkering down at home and not really interacting with others. I'm not really a social person, but she is, so it hasn't been too difficult for me. But
Hmm.
yeah, we just been staying in pretty good.
Oh yeah, no, my mom's been calling me. She's not able to visit like our cousins and stuff, and it's she loves flying. I have a little cousin who's immune deficient, and he doesn't live too far from me, so I'm always worried. I'm like, am I taking this and bringing it to him without even knowing it? I would, if something happened, I would feel like the worst person in the world. I do everything I can, but it's like there's an invisible monster out there that wants to. Um, there's nothing like it. Like my mom's
Right.
past 60 years old. I asked her, have you seen anything like this? No.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's weird because you go outside and it's like you almost forget, and it's like, oh, this is just a normal world. There's birds, there's trees, but then you got to like in the back of your head, you're like, oh yeah, don't walk around this weird person coming at me right now. So it's easy to almost like forget when you walk outside
Yeah, it
because the
is.
world's like unaffected by it. The world itself is actually liking this.
Yeah, and there's a lot
All of
of
us inside.
and there's a lot of like white poets that think they're really smart that they were like maybe we're the real virus, and I'm like, shut up. Not
Well, I
what
mean,
what you were
we're
saying is
clearly
fine.
the real. we're clearly the virus of the Earth. That's almost
Oh,
proven at this point. But yeah,
oh, most definitely, yeah.
yeah,
If Detroit starts looking like the Bahamas, then I'm gonna be like, huh, dang, we were doing that. I thought I was just
right,
having a burger.
yeah,
I didn't know
right.
I didn't know I was doing all that over there. Was there any like title you were absolutely 100% hoping for as far as that Xbox showcase that might not have shown?
Uh, I'm still waiting. I don't know who's going to get it, either Microsoft or Sony. They're both getting the game, but Elden Ring, I'm not
Oh
sure
my
who's going to
god.
be the first one to show, gameplay. I'm not sure who's going to be the one to get it.
Oh my
I'm
god.
thinking since Sony has Demon Souls remake, I kind of feel like Microsoft might be the one getting the big Elden Ring reveal when it happens. But yeah, I would have liked to see that for sure.
I'm so glad you brought up Elden Ring because the Reddit is it's a treasure trove. It's a running joke that so basically the Elden Ring Reddit is so starved for news that they started making up their own lore and they're just all going
Awesome.
crazy. They made they made their own fake. They're making their own fake reveals and their own fake tips, and they made their own like fake area called Serpent's Abide, and there's like a bunch of tips on how to do it. And I'm like, oh my god, they're so starved. Someone throw these people a bone, please.
That's awesome. The Souls community always surprises.
There's an artist on there. He's like day 89 without gameplay trailer, the Templar, and it's just like it's a good drawing, but it's like they're on day 89. Please,
Right.
I'm excited. They said that there's so as far as like what we know about that, I know there's going to be horseback combat, which is honestly something I wish Ghost of Tsushima experimented more with because you could
Right.
just trip on a pebble and you fall off your horse in that game. But I,
Right.
I want them to have more. They said they're going to have more some horseback riding combat, and they said it's going to be open world. And I don't know what I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'm not sure what open world would do to a Souls formula, but probably some pretty crazy
Right. I
things.
think if it is open world, there it's probably going to be less Souls like than what we're used to. I think it's going to be a little more not cookie cutter, but a little more like the traditional open world formula with a hint of Souls. Because Souls is so much about every single corner and little secret nugget is so meticulously crafted. That's just impossible on an open world scale.
Yeah, it's that must that must require some real, I guess, bravery, some restraint to make your game open world because once you do, you surrender the narrative pace of it because the player can go anywhere. You don't have the same freedom to drop those story beats in or those set pieces in at the same intervals that you would like.
Right. Yeah, they could always do something since they're known for doing more like passive storytelling. Although it wasn't done perfectly in Breath of the Wild, they had a decent idea of how they did their storytelling where they're kind of told through memories that could kind of be absorbed in whatever order you found them in.
Hmm.
You didn't necessarily have to do them in order to get the bigger picture of the story, or you could avoid it altogether if you just were a gameplay person, more like what I am, and you could just not concern yourself with that stuff and just focus on the action and exploration and all that. So that's
Yeah,
something that I could see them maybe doing where it's not a linear story, it's a story that can be pieced together in a huge variety of ways.
yeah. It's you definitely come up with more creative moments. I remember watching that. I think it was a three-part Breath of the Wild documentary where they said that they had to just more or less change everything. Like even when the player starts off on that plateau, they had to structure the hills and like distant visual points of interest in such a way that the player would be inclined to go to certain areas in a certain order. Or it's like
Right.
the experiences are going to be so different already.
Sure. Yeah.
I do hope that they don't because when I think of a Souls like, I think of like kind of more close quarters, more tightly designed areas. I guess maybe they'll have like dungeons that are like that and a more open area. Like, nothing drastically new that hasn't been done before, but I could easily see them doing that.
Right. Yeah, because in open world, obviously by name, it's a bunch of open areas, and Souls combat. The enemy encounters are hardly ever in that kind of just like, oh, here's a plop of enemies. where I'm not sure how they're gonna still make those tightly crafted combat encounters without making them just like, oh, here's a blob of zombies or knights. Like
Mongolians.
most open world games, so even Ghost of Tsushima kind of is like that, where you just come across kind of wide open pockets of enemies. There's no real, them jumping out of the rafters or them coming out of a secret spot behind a
Hmm.
wall. None of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and I think Dark Souls did a better job of that than Neo, where Dark Souls would have like clever, cruel enemy placement, but when you're playing Neo, it kind of starts to feel the same, where it's like, yeah, I know there's going to be a guy around that corner. I know there's going to be an archer just out of reach. I know this guy is just supposed to lure me there.
Right.
There's
Yeah. The
an
yeah
art
the
to it.
combat encounters are very like you can almost feel them happening like every like all right, it's been 10 seconds without combat. There will be a guy that jumps out in this next quarter. There will be, there's hardly any downtime in Neo, which makes the encounters a little more predictable, I guess. Because
Mm-hmm.
Dark Souls does have those moments where it's like, this weird empty spot just didn't have any guys. It just had a little thing I could pick up. But that makes the actual ambushes and stuff stick out more when you have less sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Uh, I feel like sometimes people take their inspirations. Someone at Easy Ally said this. They think they take their inspirations too literally. Where I think Neo's dev team just kind of looked at From Software and they're like, "Oh, it's really hard, and the enemy placement is evil. So let's just do that, and it'll also be good, right?" Well, no. There's a little bit more to it than just being evil for the sake of it. You have to make sure that things are
Right,
different enough that people don't feel like they're being drip fed the same combat encounters every single time. I liked using the
right.
what's the chain weapon? It starts with a K. Kura. I don't know. That's what I
The
use.
bu- the the little ball with the
Hmm.
sickle at the end. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not sure the name, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah. Was which weapon did you kind of use in Neo 2?
Um, I know in Neo 1 the spear, in Neo 2 I feel like I jumped around a lot. I
You
think
have
it
to.
was the switch. Was it switchglaive?
Yeah.
One of the new weapons. Yeah, that's what I used at the start, and then I switched to spear, and then I think I ended with dual swords, and that's where I kind of put the game down a little bit over halfway through it.
Hmm. That is a meaty game. It's a game you could
Yeah,
not even finish and say, "Hey, I got my money's worth out. I don't need to finish this. I still got what I came for out of it."
right. I killed as many of those snake Medusa ladies as I could tolerate. I'm like, all right,
uh,
that's same problem with Neo One. You need to try a little harder with enemy variety.
yeah.
Still, they're both good games, but yeah, enemy variety is a big stickler for me. Where
Hmm.
killing that same enemy 100, 200 times when you're 20 hours into a game, it's just that bugs me a lot.
Yeah. And Neo 2 definitely it added more. They had more enemies in the first game for sure. They like to do this thing where they use 100% of their enemy roster in 100% of the game. And at a certain point, I think I would just like to get to beyond the Medusa women because that
Right,
tail sweep, the stone gaze, I felt like no matter how much I got better at the game, it was just kind of always bull with them. There was no magic, like, there was no way I could do fancy footwork to just hit them without getting hit. It was when I saw them, I knew I was taking damage no matter how well I played.
right. Yeah, and the problem with like reusing them too much is when you do figure out the trick to taking them down, then you're just kind of going through the motions every time you come across them.
Hmm. That's a testament to good game design is when you've been fighting the same thing for hours on end and you still manage to kind of find new wrinkles to be excited about and still I think that's something Monster Hunter manages to do where if your
Sure.
entire game
Yeah.
is fighting the same monsters to get those materials, you have to be very very tight in your design and get that exactly
Right.
correct.
Sure. Yeah.
Although my backlog is big enough that I'm not putting another 300 hours into Monster Hunter, even with the Spice Fest that's going on right now. Altreon, did you put out videos on Altreon or whatever that dragon is?
No, the last time I was playing Monster Hunter, I did a starting the game in 2020 guide right at the beginning of this year, and I haven't really jumped back in since. I think I really like Monster Hunter World, but I think up until this point, I think I've kind of, I'm good. I'm good till the sequel.
Yeah,
I got my fun out of World, and I'm ready for the next thing.
yeah.
The idea of like coming back in to like I don't remember what my build was. I don't remember what was going on. Just to kill this like one new monster thing isn't really my preferred way to
Hmm.
um I don't know, receive new content. I would rather have them almost like wait till an Iceborne level expansion. I'd like a huge chunk. I'm not going to want to jump in a game every 3 months to fight one monster. That's not really how I like to play games.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But
Monster Hunter is a hard game to take a break from because yeah, no, like you said, when you come back, you're like, ah, crap. What was my compositions and my decorations and my charms and the weapons and
yeah,
all the different subsets of setups that I've saved? It's
right. I mean, it's super good on Capcom for like keeping up with it and doing that, and plenty of people appreciate it. But it's just for me personally, I grew up with like big full expansions were like the coolest thing. So I still prefer that medium instead of the little piecemeal little chunks of content.
I see, yeah. There's a fine art to it. It's like you can. I think Path of Exile does it where you can have like a somewhat consistent lifespan the entire time, or you can just kind of like have people forget it exists and then come back full force.
Right, right.
And I think it's a hard decision to choose between.
Sure. You might be starting to hear my wife starting one of her at home work meetings.
Oh,
Just
okay.
I apologize if you hear that in the background.
No, it's not.
She's a loud talker.
I didn't mean to interrupt that or
Oh, no
anything to that
problem.
effect. All right.
No,
Well,
it's not a problem.
all right. Well, yeah. No. I think I can go ahead and let you go unless there's anything else you wanted to go ahead and say. Maybe anything you wanted to plug.
I mean, thanks for having me. It was pretty cool to get some podcast practice in. I've only done a couple. I do mostly edited, highly scripted content, so I'm not the best off the cuff talker. But this, like I said, this is good practice to do from time to time. You can find me on YouTube at Boomstick Gaming. That's pretty much it. I have a Twitter, but Twitter, whatever. But yeah,
Twitter's
thanks for
okay
having
too.
me.
Yeah. No. And thanks for finding the time. All
Fun to
right, then,
do.
man. Well, have a good one. Okay. And yeah. No. I
All
will
right.
continue watching your videos and getting better at Tsushima. Hopefully.
All right. Thanks. See
Have a
ya.
good one, man. Bye bye.